Hi, I want to review with you the scoring sheet for the integrated thematic unit. It is available, the scoring sheet's available in the syllabus or under the unit plan tab in Canvas. And I'm just going to walk you through each section and explain a little bit about what is expected for each section. And then you can look at the LiveBinder link that I sent you of someone's sample. Their sample unit plan in LiveBinders, give you an idea of that format, as well as some of the information within the individual tabs, which I'm going to go over now. So the first tab in LiveBinders, and the first part of this scoring guide, has subject, grade level, and topic. So please tell me all three here, and include for example, fourth grade, the planets, or fourth grade, plants, science, plants. And make sure that all three of those components are included in this part. The next part is the curriculum, and it has several items, as you can see. The first one is the key concepts, and people sometimes have a hard time with this one because it's asking not the objectives specifically, but asking about, it's much more general, kind of like the big ideas that you use for your lesson plans. And so taking it backwards a little bit. And this doesn't have to include only reading or English language arts. It can include processes but it doesn't have to only include science or whatever subject that you're talking about. It might include some type of research. It might include some type of oral presenting. You're looking at your unit as a whole in this section as you build this unit plan. And so the key concepts, you can see some of the examples in the lesson plans that are in Canvas as well. They're really just more the big ideas and processes that you're expecting students to participate in. The next one is vocabulary. I usually tell people about 20 words, at least 20 words for the unit, and definitions. Now, some people, if they do a novel, there'll be a lot more words than that. You don't have to list them all, or you don't have to define them all, but go ahead and put the words on there. But at least 20 define, and that's pretty straightforward. As well as the state standards and grade level expectations. Those are, you can copy and paste those from your lesson plans on this page. And, you know, I'm not expecting to see 25 different standards for your, I would expect to see something along the lines of your content, science, social studies, math, whatever you choose, as well as something for reading, writing, communicating, something like that. So be sure that you select a doable number of standards and not everything on earth that could possibly work there, because you can't assess that many standards. The next one is the timeline, and the timeline is important because it lets me know where in the unit that you are putting your lesson plans. So for example, maybe you're doing fourth grade, the human body, and you obviously in 5 days can't cover all of the human body systems. So you might have a calendar that has 1 week the digestive system, 1 week the circulatory, 1 week the skeletal, 1 week, you know, and that type thing. So maybe your unit's going to take 4 weeks, but you're only giving me 5 lesson plans. So you don't, you just plug in the days where those lesson plans are going to take place. You know, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. It might be lesson 15 is your first lesson for the whole unit. You don't have to schedule and plan all the activities for the whole unit. You may select one lesson for each one of those systems, or you may select maybe you just want to do the circulatory system and you do your 5 lessons there. So the timeline will also show me when you're going to have your test, your guest speaker, your field trip, and any other type of perhaps your performance-based activity when that is going to be assigned and students will be working on. And so that section, the timeline, can be in any format you want, as long as I can follow you're thinking. The next part is the parent letter, and I know a lot of content area teachers don't send parent letters, but I will tell you, I have a high school student whose math teacher sends letters by email to parents, and last year he had a social study or a history teacher send email updates, and they were just real brief things, but it was really nice as a parent for me to say, hey, did you get that whatever project done? And of course my son was like, yeah, whatever. But I was happy to know that that was something he was going to be working on, or if there was a test coming up. So your parent letter is really just, this is the unit that we are getting ready to study, and these are some of the things we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking a field trip, we're going to have a guest speaker, and you don't have to go into a whole lot of detail, just a brief overview of what you'd like parents to know about your unit that's coming up. Field trip and guest speaker, you need one of each. And most people can find, you don't have to have them in hand, you don't have to go there. For the field trip, I recommend being realistic. And so maybe St. Louis to Jeff City, maybe Cahokia Mounds would be okay. Whatever that students can do in a day trip. And that would be realistic. So if it costs $40 to go, that's not realistic. But you know, a lot of field trips you can do for under $10 a piece, or maybe the school funds some of that for you. So you don't have to get into all the logistics of that, but you do need to tell me where it is you would take your students if you had the opportunity to visit somewhere that would support the teaching of your unit plan. And then the guest speaker is also just, you don't have to contact that person. You don't have to even have their name. You can say, you know, a local landscape gardener is coming in to talk to our class about plants and seasons and things like that. So these are pretty open. If you're not sure, ask. If you get stuck on one, because occasionally someone has a topic that it's just really hard to think about what they would have for a field trip or a guest speaker, just reach out. We'll brainstorm together and we'll figure it out. The next topic is the websites. The next section is the websites. And for the websites, I would like you to list at least 5, but most people use dozens of websites when it comes to creating a unit plan. So whatever websites you use, be sure to put them in this section, and a brief description of what it is. They can be websites for the students. They can be websites for your for you as a teacher. And so maybe there are videos or the students watch, or maybe a web quest. It would be great to have a web quest on there. So that would be the websites, and the bibliography are the books that you're going to be selecting for your students to support the learning of your content. And so we're looking at picture books, we're looking at novels, we're looking at trade books, whatever text that you're having available for your students. Also books that you're using, for example, if you use a strategy out of the Jerry Johns book, then you should have that listed here in the bibliography. Some people will put a little picture of the book next to each one. That's a nice touch. It's not required. And a brief description of what it is. But I would like you to have at least 5 fiction or nonfiction books that you could make available for your students during the time of your unit plan. However, you don't have to have them. You don't have to order them. You don't have to try to get a hold of them. Just look for things. And if you're not sure where to find this, of course, everyone knows Amazon, but you can also go to Mobius from the Missouri Baptist webpage, library webpage. Go to Mobius and then search. For example, you could say plants and juvenile fiction. And if you put those two together, it's going to show you fiction, or you could even say plants and juvenile literature, and it will show you the fiction and nonfiction available. Now, plants would be a very broad topic, so you might have to weed through there for your age appropriate, depending on your students and hopefully you'll be able to find that. And even people who've done math have found not fiction and nonfiction books that students could read to learn more about as an extension, or to support, because maybe you have limited access to a textbook, so you want to provide students that information by way of a picture book, or for some independent reading. And then after that is the multiple intelligence sheet. I will need to get that for you. If you need a format, let me know. Otherwise, you can just make a chart with 8 boxes, and you're going to make a table with 8 boxes and then list each of the intelligences, one in each box. And from this, I want you to pull from your unit something, either an activity or an extension or a project or something that is done in the unit that would relate or connect to that particular intelligence. So it doesn't have to be in your lesson plan, but I would expect to see many of them somewhere in your unit. And then finally in this section, integration with art, PE, and music. This is, you have to at least pick 2. We've found in the past that most people, pretty much everybody, can find some sort of art, PE, or music. They can find 2 of those 3 things that could be integrated with their unit. So art may be one that's a harder one for you to think of something, but PE and music you were able to find. So just use 2 of the 3. And in this section, you're going to list what you're going to be doing. Now, I will need to see this in a lesson plan somewhere in your 5 lessons in your unit. Again, it can be an extension. It can be something that is ongoing in the, maybe you're playing music in the background from that particular time period. So it doesn't have to be a whole lesson plan just on movement or on art or music, but it does need to be part of a lesson plan. The next section is the instruction, and you can see there are 5 lesson plans. Each lesson plan needs to have a content area reading strategy that is blended into the lesson. Your content, plants or the human body or whatever your content that you're teaching is obviously the very important part of your lesson plan, but this strategy is a way to help your students learn about it, understand it, maybe support the text, helping them get through some difficult text. Maybe you're having them do some coding while they're reading the text, or text mapping. Those are strategies we've learned about in other reading classes here. And those would easily fit into pretty much any lesson. So there are many of the strategies out there, and we'll talk more about them as we go through the weeks, but many strategies out there that are generic enough, they would fit into any content area. Then there are others that are very specific to certain, or maybe lean toward more of a particular content. Some graphic organizers that work better with science or with social studies or math. But it's up to you which 5 lesson plans you pick, which 5 strategies you pick, of course, to go into those 5 lesson plans. I would recommend, after you complete 1 lesson plan, to send it my way so I can review it, and that way you're not writing all 5 lesson plans in a format that you're going to lose points for, because if you're missing the strategy piece, you miss 10 points on your lesson. And there are 20 points for each lesson. So 5 lessons is 50 points. You don't want to do that. So send it my way. I can look at it, because I'm going to be looking for that specific piece, as we talked about, where you're talking about the purpose and the procedure and the modeling, how you are going to do that with the students. And we will go over this again in person or via Zoom when we meet. But you can also look at the sample lesson plans. The one that has the LiveBinder link, or the ones that are posted in Canvas. It could give you a pretty good idea of the piece that I'm referring to that's different. And that was on the assignment for this week and next week, so you may have already done that. And then the performance-based activity is something that you are going to have your students do to show what they know, and it's pretty much a process, and it is assessed by a rubric because it's open-ended. So you may have your students creating a model of a cell, and they can choose whichever medium that they want to use. You can have your students, some people have done like a travel brochure for a particular region or state. You can have them, do a presentation, some type of a research. I mean, even an essay truly is considered performance-based because it's open-ended and would need to be graded by a rubric to be fair to the student. So keep that in mind. You're going to type out in this section what it is that you're having the students do. It doesn't have to be in a lesson plan format. I probably will see it somewhere in a lesson plan, but I might not if you're giving me lesson plans from earlier in the unit and you want to wait and do this later in the unit, later on the timeline. So it doesn't have to, but I do need to see it here, what you would be doing, and you will create a rubric that will assess this, and you can see that in the assessment section. So make sure you have it in both places because you get 20 points for one and 25 for another. The last section is the assessment component, and you will have to create your own test. I would like to see at least one short answer or open-ended question. Where you get your questions from is up to you, but it can't be a copied test from a book or online. It needs to be something that you've put together based on your specific subject matter that you have taught for this unit. And then the answer key is also 10 points. I recommend to people either make a copy of the test and then put the answers in there. You could do, or put the answers in red or number the answers, but I'm going to need to be able to see what the answers go to, and that would be more useful for you if you were using it as a teacher. The grading scale is just the 90, 80, 70, however, whatever your grading scale is going to be. And the unit breakdown shows us how many points for each item in your unit. So your performance-based activity might be worth 50 points, and maybe you had a test worth 50 points, and maybe you did some other work throughout the unit, so you're looking at the total amount of points. So be sure to include that. And then the scoring guide, as I've already mentioned, is covering that performance-based activity. There won't be any bonus points for turning the assignment in early because there's only 3 of you, so I can grade them at the last minute if I have to, but you're more than welcome to do that. You do get 15 points for the overall quality, and you'll see in my latest example for Live Binders, she created a table of contents. You don't have to do that. I'm not even sure how she did that, but it does look really cool. Having all the links work, making sure that I can see everything I need to see, having thorough lesson plans, having all of those components in the curriculum filled out, and just, overall quality of your work. And I anticipate you guys will all get the 15 points because I've seen enough of your work to know that it's going to be high quality. So the unit plan is, you will present the unit plan to us either by video or on Zoom, and it'll basically be you showing us your Live Binder and talking about some of the strategies that you used. It will be a modified presentation because we are not going to be necessarily able to interact with any items or artifacts or anything that you bring in to go with that. So, but you can show us, and we will talk more about that presentation later because you have to have a unit in order to present. So you don't need to know about the presentation right now. But I hope you have a great week, and I hope this information helps you to kind of get a picture of the unit expectations.